Hey, my eyes are over here. Stop checking out my big lens. I have been shooting with this lens for over a year now. After over 120,000 pictures with this lens, I think I'm finally ready to make a review about it. I never understood how somebody can make a review about a piece of gear when they just pull it out of the box and they're like, here it is, and this is my opinion about it. How can somebody give an honest review about a piece of gear they haven't truly worked with? What's up? I'm Jay LeBlanc, wedding photographer and photography educator. Have you noticed my big lens? Listen, I have big hands, but this is a massive lens. Wait, did I mention that this is a big lens? Oh, I'm sure you saw another review where they said, this is a big lens. Wait, there was another important thing I had to tell you. Oh, yeah, that's right. This is a really big lens. You watch any review about this lens, and everybody's gonna say, it's so heavy, it's so big. Well, yeah, they're right. Cool. I think you've got that part. This lens has been out for a long time. I'm just gonna let you know right now, I'm not going into specs in this video. 90% of you don't even care. I can list them off. Some of you won't even know what the hell I'm talking about. This is the Canon RF 28-70 f2. And if you wanna know any specs beyond that, here you go, you nerds. I'm not here to get into specs. When I review gear, I'm going to give you my honest opinion about it, and hopefully to steer you in the right direction if this is something that you're really considering purchasing. And here's the best part. Right now, I have a really small following on YouTube, so you know I'm not being paid to say any of this. I bought this lens with my own money. It wasn't sent to me, it wasn't donated, it wasn't loaned, didn't get a discount on it. I bought it with my money, and I shoot with it every week. So after a very long, extensive testing period, I think I'm finally ready to talk about it. Wait, did I mention? This is a really big lens. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, first let's talk about who this lens is for. Almost anybody. This is one of the most versatile focal length ranges that you can find in a lens at a very enticing aperture. I will say, I think this is a photographer's lens. I don't think this is a videographer's lens. Yeah, the Canon R6, R5, R3, they all have in-body stabilization, and it's pretty good, but it's not that good. I'm going to be honest with you, when you pair it with a lens that has stabilization as well, it's much more effective. So I think if you're somebody who is shooting primarily video, or maybe you're a hybrid shooter, I would definitely look at like the 24-70 2.8 with IS, because for the most part you could get away with hand holding that. When it comes to this lens, did I mention it's a really big lens? But it also doesn't have IS built into it, so it's not going to be the most stable option that you can work with, so keep that in mind. So if you're strictly a photographer, good choice. If you're a hybrid shooter or a videographer, maybe look at something else. For me personally, I shoot 90 to 95% of a wedding day with this lens alone. If I'm doing a portrait session or a family session or an engagement shoot, I'll do the entire thing on this lens. It's phenomenal. I have no reason for switching to another lens. Maybe I have one or two shots that require a 70 to 200 or something wide, or my 15 to 35. Other than that, this lens pretty much staying glued to my camera body for an entire shoot. When it comes to a wedding day, this lens is on this camera for 95% of the day. I do shoot with two cameras, and my other camera body will either have something wide or something long, but on my main body, I'm rocking the 28-70. It's an awesome lens. I can do almost everything with this lens, from details, getting ready, to obviously the portraits, and then covering the ceremony and reception. This lens is super versatile, and I think you already know that. And if you're just watching another review video about this lens to justify your $3,000 plus purchase, stop right here. Go ahead. Just go buy it. You won't regret it. But wait, did I mention this lens is really heavy? All right, let's address the elephant in the room, which everybody is saying. This lens is really heavy. Yeah, it's heavy. It probably weighs about the same as the EF 70-200. It's a heavy lens, but at the end of the day, would you rather carry the 3 prime lenses that everybody says that this lens makes up for, or would you rather carry just one big heavy lens? I will say, after a long wedding day with this lens hanging off of my shoulder on the camera body, especially when you had a speed light on top, it gets heavy. Yeah, my shoulder will feel it a little bit the next day. I'm also younger and in decent shape, so it doesn't affect me that much. Somebody who's maybe a little bit smaller, or somebody who's older or out of shape, yeah, you might be feeling it a little bit more the next day, but I wouldn't say that's a reason to not buy it. The way I personally look at a lens, a camera body, any piece of photography gear, it's a tool. If it's something that I believe is going to make my life easier or allow me to do my job more efficiently or at a higher level, it's absolutely justifiable to purchase that item. But if I'm just finding myself scrolling through deals on B&H and trying to justify why I need a piece of gear, then I don't think this is right for you. But if you look at this lens and you say, yeah, I can see this making my life easier, or if you see yourself saying, yeah, I can see myself getting rid of a couple lenses and replacing them with just this one, then yeah, it makes sense. Go ahead. Buy it. It makes sense and it's a business write-off. Before I personally purchased this lens, I was one of those photographers who was all about the 35, 50, 75 combo for primes. I love shooting that, and I did that for like 4 years. And before that, I had the EF 24-70. It was my bread and butter. I used it all the time. But then when I switched over to the primes, I was blown away. I loved it. I thought, what could be better than this? And then this lens came along, and I was looking at it for a very long time before I could justify saying, yeah, that's something I would like to add to my arsenal. Some of the cons of this lens, did you notice how big it was? If you shoot video or a hybrid shooter, I probably wouldn't look at this lens. The low light performance of this lens is phenomenal. It's an f2, it's gonna focus really fast. But I will say in some situations that my prime lenses will focus faster. I've photographed weddings before where the dance floor is super dark, where the only lights that are on in the room are the lights that the DJ have. And I have found in some situations, this lens will struggle sometimes to focus. Don't get me wrong, any lens is gonna do that on any camera, but it was only in very rare situations that I've had these problems. Like I said, over 100,000 images with this lens, and it maybe happened to me twice. Ever. Another con, I would say, is the price tag on it. If you're worried about the price tag of this lens, maybe it's not for you. If you're somebody who has the money for it, but you're just trying to find a reason to buy it, I would say go for it if you can see yourself using it. But if this is a lens that you're gonna have to finance, maybe weigh your options with other lenses. I will tell you, it's a heavy lens, right? And I broke it once before. I've broken this lens since I've owned it. The front glass cracked and I had to send it out to be fixed, and it was not a cheap repair. So if you're not able to purchase the lens and then fix it if something were to go wrong, so just keep in the back of your mind that this is an expensive lens, and if something were to go wrong with it, it's going to be a pricey repair. I will say the f2 on it is pretty nice to have. Some people might find the f2 to be a little bit limiting or concerning. You know, there's some photographers that just love shooting everything at 1.2. Switching from a prime lens that opens up to maybe 1.2 or 1.4, because you know, you don't actually have to be good at photography if the only thing in focus is the tip of my eyelash. Personally, when I'm using this lens, if I'm only photographing one person, yeah, I will hang in that f2 to 2.8 range, but when I'm photographing more than one person, I'm always at a higher f-stop. So the f2 doesn't even matter at that point. And if you've ever been to a wedding before, usually it's two people who get married, so I'm not going to be at f2. I'm going to be at something a little bit higher. Some people say that this lens replaces a couple prime lenses, the 35, a 50, and an 85. 35 and 50 I can understand. 85, I disagree. It's 70 millimeters, and 85 is an 85. That's a bit of a difference. If I'm in a situation where I think an 85 is the correct choice to use, I still have an 85 millimeter prime lens that I'll use instead of this. I don't know if anything in this video makes sense, other than, did you know this lens is really heavy? You don't say. If you're really on the fence, if it's a money situation, I don't think that this is a necessity. I would almost say stick it out with a 24-70 or stay with the primes, because they're also a great option. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, you're probably gonna go buy it anyway, so enjoy. Peace.